I'd like to welcome you all to the City of Albany, Oregon's City Council meeting on Wednesday, March 9th of 2022 at 6 p.m. I'd like to get a pledge of allegiance, please. I think I'll do it today. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty with justice for all. Councilor Novak, hi.
Hi.
Well, good morning. Good afternoon, rather. Sorry about that. Good evening. Next on the agenda would be a roll call vote. Roll call, please, not roll call vote.
Counselor Johnson.
Here.
Counselor Smith.
Here.
Counselor Olson.
Here.
Counselor Novak.
Here.
Counselor Bartholomew.
Here.
Counselor Kopczynski.
Here.
Mayor Johnson II.
Here. Well, thank you all. Next on the agenda is a proclamation, Women's History Month, March 2022. Proclamation, Women's History Month, March 2022. Whereas women of every race, class, ethnic background have made historic contributions to the growth and strength of our nation in countless recorded and unrecorded ways. And whereas women have played continue to play critical economic, cultural, and social role in every sphere of our life in the nation by constituting a significant portion of the labor force, working inside and outside of the home. And whereas women have played a unique role throughout the history of the nation by providing a majority of the volunteer labor force of the nation. And whereas women were particularly important in the establishment of early charitable, philanthropic, and cultural institutions in our nation. And whereas women of every race, class, ethnic background served in every leadership, as early leaders in the forefront of every major progressive social change and movement. And whereas women have served our country courageously in the military. And whereas women have been leaders not only in securing their own rights of suffrage and equal opportunity, but also in the abolitionist movement, the emancipation movement, and industrial labor movement, the civil rights movement, and other movements, especially the peace movement, which created more and fair, just society for all. And whereas despite these contributions, the role of women in history has been consistently overlooked and undervalued in the literature, teachings, and study of American history. Now, therefore, I, Alexander D. Johnson II, Mayor of the City of Albany, Oregon, do hereby proclaim March 2022 as Women's History Month in Albany, Oregon. In witness whereof, I hereto set my hand and cause the seal of the City of Albany to be affixed the 9th day of March 2022. Alexander D. Johnson II, Mayor. Thank you. Whew. That one means a lot to me. Thank you. Business from the public. Persons wanting to comment or provide written materials for the record must register to speak and attach the materials at the address provided in the agenda before noon of the day of the meeting. We only received one letter. I think all the council received it. Thank you, Allison, for that. The council get a chance to read the letter. And no one signed up to speak this evening. So thank you very much. Next is the approval of the agreements. IGA, item A for approval. IGA for administering disadvantaged business enterprise unified certification function. Rob Romeo will be speaking to us on page 4 through 46 of your packet.
Good evening, councilors and Mr. Mayor. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, so speaking of civil rights, this is moving in the same direction. So staff is requesting council approve an intergovernmental agreement, an IGA between the City of Albany, Oregon Department of Transportation, the Oregon Business Development Department, to partner in the administration of the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program through the Unified Certification Program to receive federal funding for the Albany Municipal Airport. ODOT has laid out a wonderful program simplifying the process with this intergovernmental agreement with the Unified Certified Program. Without this intergovernmental agreement, the city has no easy way to identify DBEs, and it would be very time consuming and expensive to conduct the disparity studies like ODOT has already done. This is something the city is going to have to comply with in order to continue to receive federal funding, federal grant money for the airport. The city of Albany is required to comply with federal requirements for the DBE program and is requesting approval to partner with ODOT. The terms of the agreement require cooperation and coordination of DBE services to cover the term of 5 years.
Council, are you finished, airport manager?
What's that?
Is there more? Any additional comments?
No.
Council questions for, oh, I see Councilor Johnson first up.
Yeah. Rob, could you just give me a simple example of what this would be, like an example of what it would cover?
It's basically covering, it's basically laying out an equal playing field for minorities in transportation funding for grants. So basically, ODOT is laying out a policy and they're making sure they don't want to exclude anybody from participation and deny any person beliefs or otherwise discriminate on the basis of race, color, sex, national origin, disability, and the award and administration of assisted contracts. So it's basically laying out a DBE, which is the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise for the city of Albany. And we're going to basically contract and do an intergovernmental agreement with ODOT.
So do you know,
Council-
have we, oh, thank you, Chris, yes.
Sorry, Councilor Johnson.
That's okay.
Yeah, so as Rob said, this is a program that we're required to participate in to offer opportunities on federally funded contracts to disadvantaged business enterprises. And so a DBE can be a minority-owned business, a woman-owned business, and we're required to ensure that we're not discriminating against these businesses that are owned by minorities or women. This particular IGA is with ODOT and Oregon, Business Oregon, or whatever their formal name is, because ODOT has gone through the process of identifying DBEs or businesses that qualify to be DBEs, and they have a list. And they're when we advertise a contract that's funded by the FAA grant funds, if a DBE bids on that contract, then we are to ensure that they are considered equally and not discriminated against. So for instance, let's say we had an FAA funded grant project to repave the runway, for instance, and there is a DBE, if there is a DBE that ODOT has recognized and put on their list that bids on that project, then we acknowledge that they are a legitimate DBE and we can, award them that contract if they qualify and give the lowest bid, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really, we're required to consider DBEs, but we don't have the bandwidth to establish a list of DBEs. So ODOT has already done that. This IGA allows us to use ODOT's list.
So basically we would still go with the lowest bidder. And I mean, I just can't imagine that they weren't allowed to submit anything in the past. So now there
Sure.
has to be a law to do it. So, okay.
Well, so the federal rules require us to have a written DBE policy when
Okay.
we receive over a certain amount of federal dollars, which the airport receives. And our contracting documents already have all of that language, non-discrimination clauses, and it's information about how you make sure you're reimbursed in a timely manner and all of these things, which we have really good contracting staff, in finance and in public works. So our documents are already up to date. This is really more of a formality that we have to acknowledge that we have a list. We know that there's a list. ODOT has the list. We don't want to have to create a list ourselves. It's very time consuming. And so it's just a way to make this process go a little bit smoother.
Okay, that's understandable. Thank you very much, both of you.
Thank you very much, Director. Counselor Kopsinski, you're next up, and then Counselor Novak.
I move we approve a resolution authorizing execution of an IGA with Oregon Department of Transportation, ODOT, and Oregon Business Development Department, OBDD, to partner in the administration of the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Unified Certification Program.
Second.
Any discussion? I think Counselor Novak was next, and then we'll have Counselor Olson.
Yeah, I don't have anything to say against it. I guess I was kind of on the same page as Counselor Johnson. I'm like, we actually have to make a law that says we won't discriminate against someone. I'm stunned to think that people would be turned away and they'd say, well, it's because you're women. Well, it's because we don't like the color of your skin. That just blows my mind. So, yeah, it's been seconded. I have nothing else to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Novak. Can you put your hands down, please, if you've already spoken? Counselor Olson, you're next up, sir.
Yes, I'm wondering, does this apply only to our airport or does it apply to the city in general?
Great question.
The IGA will allow the city to participate in any, we use ODOT's list for any other transportation related fund. So for instance, if we get a large bucket of federal money to do a major road project or something like that, we would have the same DBE requirement. And by signing up to use ODOT's list, that same list, it has an airport section and a road section. And so we can use it across other programs as well.
So are we planning to do something major at the airport where we have to do this?
We've received a grant already that is that the threshold is $250,000. And our current project, which Rob can tell you all about, is an automated weather system, which is more than $250,000 in federal funds. So that's what
Okay.
triggered this.
Well, it would be nice to have that explained beforehand rather than 42 pages of some sort of boilerplate that I looked at some of it, but I couldn't read it all. And is all that boilerplate, is that all federal stuff? Or is some of it state or some of it our city stuff?
If you're referring to the IGA attachment, that's the IGA that ODOT has written. So that would be the state language.
Well, that's certainly a good way to hide something in there, and I hope there's nothing hidden. I couldn't find it, but I'm suspicious.
Oh, Counselor Olson, I agree.
Thank you.
I fell asleep reading it last night.
You read the whole thing?
Yeah, I read the whole thing and my eyes kind of glazed over about 10:30.
You must be a speedier reader than I am.
Well, I read insurance documents all day. Are you done, sir? Are you
I'm done.
finished?
I think my hand's down.
It's still up. Okay, thank you. Counselor Smith, you're next.
I just wanted to add that I read all the way through it as well, and discovered that about half of it is our city policy that spells out how we will comply with the federal regulations. So it is a combination of federal, state, and local language.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. Oh, are you still commenting? Oh, there you go. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
I
Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Thank you very much. Next is the MOU with AMPO for Queen Avenue ST-21-03. Engineer Stacy Bell Castro will be speaking with us, page 47 to 52 in your packet. Hello, Stacy.
Hello, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and councilors. So the memo in the packet discusses COVID funding that is available to the city via the Albany Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, otherwise known as AMPO. AMPO received $960,000 in COVID relief funds last year. The funds were to be distributed amongst the agencies that are in its jurisdiction. In addition to Albany, this includes, let me see, Millersburg, Tangent, Jefferson, and then also Lynn and Benton counties. The agencies all have representatives that participate as members on advisory and technical boards with AMPO. They developed a project list to distribute the funds, and Albany was approved to receive $350,000 of the COVID relief funds. And they were slated to be used towards the construction of the Queen Avenue Rehabilitation Project. The Queen Avenue Rehabilitation Project, it has been in our CIP, the city's capital improvement program, for a number of years. It includes rehabilitating Queen Avenue between Highway 99E to Marion Street. The project's also listed in AMPO's Transportation Improvement Program. The project is estimated to cost $2.7 million. It is in fiscal year 2024 in the CIP. It's fully funded, so accepting these funds, what it'll do is it'll increase the reserves in street capital, so there'll be more funds to use on other projects. The other thing I wanted to mention is the Queen Avenue's project schedule is driven by improvements that ODOT has planned to make for some time at the railroad crossing that's located on Queen Avenue, just east of Highway 99E. ODOT is currently planning to make these improvements in 2023. Unfortunately, we do expect ODOT is going to be pushing that schedule further out, which isn't good news. That crossing is just in horrible shape. But the good news I have to share is staff recently met with ODOT, Union Pacific, and Portland and Western, and there's going to be an interim repair made at that crossing this spring. So yeah.
My back thanks you.
I think we get more complaints that crossing than any other road in the city. So let's see, the staff's recommendation to council for this item is to make a motion to approve the resolution that's included as attachment 1. It'll authorize the city manager to execute the memorandum of understanding, and then after that's done, AMPO will release the $350,000 to the city. Are there any questions?
Council, thank you very much, Stacy. Council, do you have any questions for Stacy? Seeing none.
No, I do.
Oh, go ahead. Oh, Councilor Smith and then Councilor Olson.
I'll yield to Counselor Olson.
Councilor Olson?
Do we have a time when the track bumps get fixed? Do we have an idea when that might happen? I get a lot of complaints about it.
Yeah, it might happen. So it's March. It probably is going to happen next month. Chris Serkluski, one of the engineers with the department, he is working with ODOT. I know the plans have been done, and so they're just waiting for the traffic control plan associated with the improvements. So I mean, it's going to happen in the next probably 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh,
Well,
great. Thank you.
fantastic.
Okay, so Councilor Smith, you still want to go?
Yep. I move adoption of the resolution accepting COVID relief funds from the Albany Area Metropolitan Planning Organization on page 49.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Those opposed, same sign. Oh, excuse me, say no. Motion passes. Councilor Novak, did you get a chance to vote?
Yes, I did. Sorry, I was muted.
Okay, so what's your vote, yes or no?
I voted yes.
Okay, thank you, 0 muted. Thank you very much. You got it, Allison? Excellent. Next on the agenda item, and now this is the one we've been having questions about. MOU with Bird for e-scooters. Peter Chosen, City Manager, will be speaking to us regarding this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, council. At the February 23rd meeting, you heard from Mike Butler, who's with us tonight again, who explained the operating concept and its dependence on a local fleet manager who's incentivized to keep track of and properly manage a fleet of scooters. Tonight in your packet, you have a draft MOU along with a pocket guide to applicable regulations for bikes, scooters, and mopeds. And there's a couple of things that I wanted to point out to address some concerns that I've heard. The first one is that this is a one-year trial program. It's meant to be 12 months, and inevitably we will learn from that. I'm sure that Bird learns from it, will learn from it. This is a commercial private sector business with a product that can help the city of Albany, and it's the free market at work. It involves no expenditure on the part of the city government. Scooters do not pop up in the community once the MOU is signed. Typically, there are about 4 to 5 weeks of planning that are done in advance of any launch that the company does. There are also many ways that somebody who has a complaint about scooters can get in touch with Bird. They can do it by phone, email, on the social media, by chat. The information for contacting them is on the vehicle itself and can be displayed on our city's website. It requires no intervention or input from city staff. In a sense, this effort could be viewed as the first step in planning for long-term micromobility in Albany. If during the trial period there are adjustments that need to be made, we can make them. As discussed on the February 23rd meeting, assistance for lower income users of the service is available. Mike discussed Bird's programs that provide discounted rates to individuals involved in government assistance programs. Their objective is to provide transportation for all, not just for a single demographic. Senior citizens, veterans, healthcare workers, et cetera, are among those eligible for discounts. Also explained in the February 23rd meeting was the fact that Bird's local managers are local businesses or entrepreneurs who live in Albany and who share the revenue with Bird. They're not independent contractors. What this means is that there's a local business that will be provided with an income for providing this service and then spending that income at other local businesses. Our city attorney has reviewed the MOU with specific attention to liability and is satisfied after consultation with CIS. I have spoken with the Monmouth city manager, where e-scooters have been operating successfully since August of last year. And again, I need to remind all that this would be a one-year pilot program with planning and educational aspects conducted 4 to 6 weeks before the launch. If the council chooses to authorize the signing of the MOU, that does not mean that the city is permanently signing up for the program. The program is a fairly simple program designed to show that the concept is sound. If Bird wants to continue after a year, and if the city chooses to continue the program, there will likely be changes that can be implemented to make the program better. At present, gas prices are surging and there is a climate crisis. We're in a situation where transportation is becoming more expensive, creating a pressing need for low-income access to first and last mile transportation. So we're now seeking council's permission to trial this form of transportation for 1 year. And sir, that's the end of my comments. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to entertain them.
Thank you, Peter. Council, any questions for Mr. Butler or Peter? Councilor Kopczynski, Councilor Novak, and then Councilor Johnson.
I'm eminently, and I'm very much in favor of this, and I hope they eminently succeed. But I think that success will be primarily determined upon the quality of the business that signs up to manage it, because their reputation is also at stake. So people have complained, I've seen about leaving them all over the place and not being picked up and being damaged. That is depends upon the business that manages that to make that work. And if they do it and do it well, then the business will succeed even faster. So I'm very strongly in favor of letting them try.
Counselor Novak. Thank you, Counselor Kupczynski. Counselor Novak.
So I'm not opposed to letting them try, but I think that Steph Napa raised some very valid concerns. And I think we should address those concerns. I don't know, like, what's the hurry? I don't feel like we're in a super rush. Yeah, I know gas just went through the roof, but I'd like to address the concerns that the lady who serves on the Transportation Commission has brought to our attention, because I think they're very, very, they're good. They're important. They're things that we haven't considered. And I know, you know, with all due respect, we're often being told that we don't want to create additional work for staff. And she raises that issue. And I think, again, I'm not against this. I just think, what's the all-fired hurry? Let's get things in place. As she rightly pointed out, the success of businesses such as this has everything to do with the effort that's done ahead of time. That you work out the details. You don't just throw it up and say, well, it's only for a year. As far as that goes, my friends, I have a friend who I've known since undergrad, which was in Monmouth at Western Oregon. And he's well familiar with these scooters. And for what it's worth, he's not a fan, in spite of what their city manager has said about them. He says people leave them around like discarded toys. And they're also not necessarily super safe with them. So that's his personal experience. And this is someone that I've known for decades, who's lived in Monmouth for decades. He has resided there. I don't know if it's every year since we were in undergrad, but it's been a long time, decades. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And that's part of why I say, sure, fine, let's do it. But let's approach with wisdom and caution and not rush in. I see no reason to rush at this. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Counselor Novak. Counselor Johnson.
Yes, I'm in favor of this too. I mean, actually, the Bird Company, they could come in and do it anyway. They wouldn't need our, I mean, they're a private business, so they could do it. But I just want to give an example. We're going over to Corvallis this morning, so we were just bopping down Lion Street. And it's not your scooter, Mike, I'm sure. But we're going down a one-way street, and I'll be danged on the left side if there wasn't a scooter coming on the wrong way, going the wrong direction. And I'm thinking, I mean, I don't know. I guess the word is you can't fix stupid, but I don't know what we could do. I'm sure there's going to be citations and whatever, but I think it's worth a try. And like I said, I think they could do it anyway. So, and also, I think the lady did make a good point about not only having it downtown, maybe around the different areas of the city. So, but anyway, that's my comment for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Olson, you're next up.
Yes, I'm wondering if I'm 25 years younger and I'm riding one of those scooters and I run into one of our potholes in one of our streets we had downtown in Ward 1. There's quite a few potholes. And I go over the handlebars and I get a concussion. Who do I sue? The city or the scooter company? Or do I just swallow the thousands of dollars to get my head fixed? Do we know?
So the city attorney, Counselor Olson, so city attorney did mention it show this to our insurance agency. So Sean, did you have, city attorney, you have anything?
No, like I said, we ran the indemnification and insurance information by CIS, which would be the person who would handle any claims that were filed against the city. Counselor Olson, probably if someone was injured on one of these scooters and decided they wanted to sue, they would do what I call a shotgun plead, and you would sue everybody. They would sue the city, they would sue the scooter company, they would sue the local operator, or manager, they would sue the manufacturer. If they were wearing a helmet and they had a head injury, they'd probably sue the helmet manufacturer as well. And that's usually how those personal injury cases go. But yeah, I mean, we've run it by CIS because initially what you're looking at tonight is not the agreement we originally had when it came to indemnification. I modified it some. And then we ran that by CIS to make sure they were okay with that, because like I said, ultimately they'll be the ones defending that case if and when it ever came. And to my knowledge, so far, we haven't had any in the Monmouth area. So, but like anything, I mean, a lawsuit's going to be inevitable at some point. We get sued every year, several times a year, for people falling on the sidewalk, regardless of whose fault it is. We had a person that was carrying a coffee mug and fell on the sidewalk and cut their hand and sued the city for that at one point. So they weren't successful, but it happened. So it's just the nature of the business, unfortunately.
Okay, well, thank you. At least we might have some help if somebody sued us for injury.
I did have a question for Mr. Butler. So let's talk about the indemnification. So like if this is somebody's personal scooter, they would sue not us, but they'd sue the person they hit them or whatever. How has Bird handled these kinds of cases in the past?
I mean, there's not a material difference between someone riding a personal scooter and getting an injury than trying to sue the city versus ourselves, right? So there's not a big difference there. The only difference is that there is language that says, unless someone can prove a degree of gross negligence against the city, it's very difficult to sue and then to enter into judgment and then win a case like that. People are, as Sean had mentioned, it's a litigious environment. People get into accidents often, and it's not really necessarily a personal or a private business's responsibility for something like that. But rest assured, there are hundreds and hundreds of cities that have signed off on the same language, and have this business available, have our business available to them. And I think if it became too much of a problem, where people are getting in injuries so often and suing cities, we wouldn't be operating in 400 cities. So I think that's usually what it boils down to.
Okay, so thank you for that. Now, as far as data, are you going to provide the city with data, or does this or does staff be required to go get that information?
Yeah, and I was surprised to hear some of the questions from Steph Napa, who I met with yesterday, and she had a lot of really positive things to say about this, and I addressed all of her concerns that she shared with me, that she was fully in support of this. So I was surprised to hear some of those comments. Many of them were addressed yesterday. We give the city, and I mentioned this to Peter, I sent him a number of screenshots. The city gets access to movement data, rider data, where people pick up, where they drop off. And this is free data that is otherwise unobtainable in any fashion for the city. And having an understanding of where your citizens are going, what businesses are going to, can influence future programs or influence the need for new bike lanes or bike racks or new infrastructure. And this is just something we're going to give to you for free. It's part of the benefits of working with a company like this.
All right, thank you. Council, any other questions? Do I have a motion? Oh, Councilor Bartholomew has one.
Yes, I was just hoping that the one thing of all of those comments that hasn't been addressed is where the scooters will actually be deployed, because downtown people usually walk, but in areas where the bus lines go, and there's quite a distance between a house and a bus line, that seems to be a very good place to have those scooters. So that was my.
Yeah, and I could comment on that. And that was another thing that Seth and I had spoke about yesterday. This is not.
I can't hear you.
Oh, sorry.
Mike, we can hear you now.
That was weird. Hold on. Okay. Can everybody?
I think you're back on.
Am I back?
Yes.
I think so.
Okay.
Yes.
Sorry about that. Yeah, this is not just for a certain location or demographic. This is meant to be used in the commercial corridor and residential area for people to get home, to get to work, to get to the bus line, to get to the grocery store, whatever that is. So this is not just meant for a certain demographic. You can, for all intents and purposes, view this as a level of public transportation, but instead you can go anywhere as opposed to just being limited to certain rail lines or things like that.
Okay, Council, thank you very much, Mike. Councilor Novak?
Thank you. When this was originally presented to us a few weeks ago, I believe we were told that they were looking at deploying them in the historic part of downtown Albany initially. And what I'm wondering is, Mr. Butler, since you had that conversation with Ms. Napa yesterday, would you be willing to share with us the answers that you gave her to the questions that she's laid out? Because I would really appreciate some answers to the concerns that she brought before us. I share those concerns, and I'd really like to hear what you have to say in regard to it.
Yeah, I think just in short, the biggest thing that she was concerned about, and hers were very valid, and I think it was just due to the fact that she wasn't privy to many of the conversations that we've had with the city. She was concerned about planning. She thought that this MOU would be executed and vehicles would just show up tomorrow. And I said, no, there's a month and a half of planning of deployment zones, of parking zones, of slow zones, working with the city on where vehicles should be ridden, where they shouldn't, where should they be deployed, community pricing, work with local organizations. The list goes on and on and on. And so that was her main concern. And so I think she was very satisfied with the fact that now she realized that there was a whole slew of planning that had to be involved. And I think that was her main issue. But again, she, at the end of our conversation, I received an email from her saying, hey, I'm fully in support of this. I didn't realize a lot of these things on the onset.
So we have 6 weeks, if we approve this MOU, to determine whether we're going to have these scooters out at Lynn Benton Community College, or whether they're going to be in neighborhoods, and whether they're going to be downtown, and whether they're going to be out by Fred Meyer's in residential areas there. Who makes the determination of where we deploy the scooters and how many we deploy?
Yeah, and it's also an ongoing situation. This is not just a, hey, we're making a decision on day one, hey, good luck with everything. This is something that can be adjusted. Those locations, those ride zones, deployment zones can be adjusted on a daily basis.
Okay, but I'm talking about what happens in the 6 weeks before they show up on the street and people are supposed to start using them. Who makes the decision? How much? I mean, the council meets a couple times a month. I'm just wondering, how do we map this all out if we approve this MOU? Who's having the say? Is it just between you and the city manager? How do we work out the details?
Yeah, I mean, this is what we do with every city. This is not something that's brand new. We work with the city staff and with their direction and their input, and they also work with us. We've been doing this longer than everyone. We have more experience than any company in the world doing this. You should probably take a lot of our input, and then we should take a lot of yours. And then we determine, what types of press releases need to be taken out, what level of education needs to be there. This is something that we do time and time again for, very, very complex cities like Portland and Rome and Chicago and New York City. So that's what happens in the pre-launch. But you're right, we do work with the staff. We do need to work with someone, and they get to use us as often or as little as they want.
So this is a decision that staff makes, and all the council does is give approval that, yeah, we want to move ahead on it. And then staff makes all the determinations about where these things are and how many of them there are. Is that how it typically works? I'm just wondering how it works.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Yeah. I just don't want to rush. I really think we could lay out some of this stuff before we move ahead. It seems to me like it would be wise, even to gauge public, to get public input, public opinion. I know you're everywhere. I get that, and I appreciate it, and I respect it.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if as a council or as city staff, it wouldn't be good to put out some feelers to our citizenry and get some feedback from them. Maybe you'll get a whole lot of input from one part of town where they say, oh yes, this would really help us. Because we can't start with a fleet of 200, I'm guessing. We're probably going to have, 25 or 50 or whatever it is. And it would be wise to know where we want to deploy them initially, rather than, I mean, I don't know. It
Well,
just seems
shouldn't
to me like
you-
we should do some
So
legwork.
so I
before
think
we-
Counselor Novak, Counselor Novak, that's not a question for him to answer for our city.
Mhm.
So let's turn to the city manager and see what he has to say.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's important to point out, this is not a government program.
I understand that,
This is-
sir.
This
Yeah.
is, this, I just
Mhm.
mean, just by
Yeah.
way of explanation, that this is
Mhm.
the free market stepping in to solve a problem. And the feedback will be from the market. I'm sure that Mr. Butler and his managers will be paying attention to usage rates and locations, and they'll be trying to maximize usage because it means a profit for them. So again, it's the free market stepping in to solve to fill a niche, a needed service. So I think that's probably something that's important to remember. That's not something that we as a government are mandating.
I think, and I agree with that. And it's a courtesy for them to come to us to bring this to our attention. They could have done it without even involving us. I think there was a good first step for a public-private partnership. And so I would call for a motion on the resolution.
I would make that motion.
I would second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign.
Okay.
Are you opposed? Who's opposed?
I've never had a situation where I'm sort of at a loss and somewhat ambivalent, because it's not like I'm not in favor of doing it. I just feel like I would like more information before we start it. And I know there's a 6-week time period where that information will be determined. So I guess we'll just see how it plays out.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Butler, would you make a comment?
yeah, just final comment. And Councilor Novak, I'm very appreciative that you're very thoughtful and pragmatic about this. If you like, I would love to set up 15-20 minutes with you to talk about kind of what that launch phase looks like. I'm confident by the end of that, you'll have a huge sigh of relief, just given kind of what we do. But again, I appreciate some of the just kind of thoughtfulness there.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the consent calendar. Any counselor have any comments regarding consent calendar?
I would move for the adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Next on the agenda is the staff report, number 7, temporary golf course at Deerfield Park. Director Ladane will be bringing that to us today.
Hi, good evening. Can you all hear me? Awesome.
I can hear
Thanks,
you.
Mayor. Thanks, Council, for the opportunity to come and take a few minutes tonight. No action is required on this one. It's just kind of an FYI and to spread a little bit of enthusiasm and positive news. So often we talk about partnerships and how vital they are in order for us to do more in our community with our limited resources. And so we work pretty closely with the Disc Golf Club of Albany. So not regular golf with the clubs, but with discs and baskets. And they have done fundraising in order to put temporary baskets, 9 of them, out at Deerfield Park. And they've done all the fundraising. They're going to help our staff do all the physical labor. And so it's pretty amazing. They've stepped up in the past. They've funded all of the 18 holes at Bryant Park, 9 holes at Timberland. They're a gung-ho group, and we're just very thankful for them. So why Deerfield? Well, it's a 10+ acre park that has not had a lot of improvement for a very long time. It is a quiet park, and I think the neighborhood really appreciates that. Disc golf is not going to be bringing hordes and hordes of people. I mean, it's popular, and we want it to be popular, but it's kind of self-timed. So yes, it's a great spot. Rick and I went out and we walked the course. We made some adjustments as to where we think if an errant throw went this way, we might have an angry neighbor with a disc in their backyard, or, we're getting close to the property lines underneath the power lines. So once again, no permanent materials will go in. We're going to put it up sometime in April, strike it at the end of the fall season before it gets too wet and muddy. And during that time, we're going to have the information out on our website and social media for the community to provide feedback. Just let us know what they think. Deerfield is one of the parks identified on our CIP coming up for future years. And this will be a really great opportunity for us to test it out and see if this is the type of activity that is going to be enjoyed and appreciated. So just wanted to let you know, say thank you to the Disc Golf Club of Albany. And I can't save a disc to save, throw a disc to save my life. I proved that when we did the walkthrough. But I welcome you all to come on out. Heck, we can do it together. So I welcome any questions or comments that you might have.
Thank you very much, Director. Councilor Smith, you have questions?
No questions, but thank you on behalf of the residents of Ward 3. This is going to be pretty exciting. I walked by yesterday on my morning walk, and I was scoping out where all the baskets are going to go. That's a really cool idea. I like it. I can see my fellow dog walkers out there with perhaps having to retrieve a few. If they take their dogs when they're playing disc golf, that might be a little distracting for the pups, but it's a really good place. There's plenty of parking, even though I don't think that would generate a lot of people parking there. But Deerfield Park is a nice big open field and good spot for it. Thank you.
No, that's music to our ears. And one of the things that we're really excited about is, once again, not a disc golfer myself, but apparently Bryant Park is challenging and it's a little intimidating for folks who are trying to get out and start to recreate or maybe try out the sport. And so we're trying to grow folks, getting outside, exercising and recreating from an early age. So this course is going to be set up to be very beginner or kid friendly, so that it's not going to be intimidating. Anybody can try it. Anybody can do it. How well you do, that is up to you and your physical and your skill level. But the goal is for everybody at least to go out and have a good time and be able to feel like they're accomplishing something. Thank you for the positive feedback, Councilor Smith.
Well, thank you very much, Director. Any other councilor have any questions or comments for Director Ledane? Councilor Johnson? Oh, no. So Allison, do we need to make a motion to approve this or no, we're just good to go?
No, this was just a staff report.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. Next up, thank you very much, Director. I'm excited. I can't wait to see how people do play with this. It's gonna be awesome. Next is business from the council. First on my screen is Councilor Johnson.
Oh, I was hoping I wasn't going to go first. I have a couple things. I got a call from a constituent this week, and he's been affected by our city services fee and costs raising everywhere. And so and it's so true, people on fixed incomes, people on disability, unfortunately, he says, I can't handle these raises anymore because I only have so much money. And so he did say, well, if he doesn't want to bag his stuff up and go find a ravine to put it in, excuse me. And so told him I would bring it up. And he also said that Republic Services, he's really against them getting an automatic raise. And I explained to him that they didn't get a raise 2 years ago, but yes, they do. And I told him that I have been against this way of calculating it for years, because who knows what, they can present us anything on a stat sheet. And we just take it for gospel that that's what it is, I haven't seen any like attrition, loss of workers, like they said, due to COVID. They have better technologies, which should lower costs. And so told him I would bring it up, and I would request again that we look into how we deal with Republic Services. He said that he had talked to one of the county commissioners, and they have a different way of dealing with Republic Services. And he says they couldn't prove to them, Republic couldn't prove to them that they needed the raise, and so they didn't get it. And they also, I guess, don't have this $4 fee. And this is from the constituents, so this is what he is telling me, but he did talk to the commissioner. So I would request again that we look into how we deal with Republic Services. Because, I mean, now this year, I'm sure they're gonna say, you know, the gas prices are high, so they've gotta have it. But I don't know of any other entity that has their automatic raises that they come to us. I mean, I don't even know why they come to us, because they're gonna get what they want anyway. But, okay, so I got it for the gentleman. And let's see, what else did he say? This is quite a conversation, let me tell you. Oh, you know, I told him, I says, well, you know, with the city fee, I says, hopefully it will go down. Philomath did it, maybe we can do it too. I says, but it's kind of like, I don't have any kids in school, so why should I pay taxes, school taxes? You know, I don't use I haven't used the police in 10 years, so why should I pay that? You know, so it's just that type of thought process where I don't use it, so why should I pay? And I understand that. And so I just listened to him and told him I would bring it up. And so I think that'll take care of what he had said. And I only have one other thing, is Kinsey will attest to this, and Councillor Smith too. This committee applications and appointments has been a real bear this year. I had a pretty knowledgeable person say, where's the application? And so I was just wondering if it's possible that the committee application link can be put on the city's homepage, so people don't have to go crawling into all the different sites. You know, it'd just be so much easier, you know, like citizen advisory groups application. Just put it on the front page, they could go to it and it'd be easier. This gentleman was just, he says, you know, these young whippersnappers, they can do all this stuff, but us old goats, we can't, you know. So I just wanted to say that. And I think that's all I have for tonight. And that's enough. Normally I don't have much, but he brought up a lot of things that I think are important, that people know that we are listening. So that's all I have for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson. Councilor Smith is next.
I really don't have anything except to add some clarification to the advisory commission application process. Those forms have been designed to apply to each commission individually, and they're custom. They have custom questions that relate directly to each commission. So that's why they're embedded in the pages where the commission information is. It not only helps the staff sort them, make sure that somebody's filled out the right application for the right commission, but it gives the applicants an opportunity to look through the page to find out what they're applying for. So we thought it was when this was done before I retired, and we did that because we felt that it would be a better service to the applicant.
Yeah, not so much, I guess.
Right.
Thanks for that clarification, Councilor Smith.
Thank you.
Councilor, so this is what I typically do when somebody expresses interest in Citizen Advisory Group. They tell me which one, and I actually send them the link to that application.
That is what I have done this last couple weeks. Yes, thanks.
Excellent. Councilor Kopczynski, you're next up.
Nothing tonight.
Thank you. Councilor Bartholomew.
Nothing tonight.
Councilor Olson. Thank you, Councilor Bartholomew.
Yes. I'd like to second what Bessie had to say about Republic Services. I think it would be good to examine that a little more closely. And as far as the price of gas, I somewhat hesitate to say this because I don't use much gas, but I'm glad to pay a higher price if it sticks it to dictator Putin. So I think the most we can do to help the Ukrainian freedom fighters, I'm all for it. In fact, if somebody could send me an address where I could give a donation to buy some hand grenades for the freedom fighters, I'd be glad to give them a donation. So, anybody have any suggestions?
I don't have any. I'm sure there's websites out there though, but be careful. I caution, be careful.
Okay,
There's scam artists running rampant right now.
thank you.
Councilor Novak?
Here we go, unmuted. Okay. Just sort of along the lines of what Councillor Johnson shared about the concerned constituent who was just overwhelmed at the thought of fees going up. And also to address the Republic Services thing where she said she doesn't know of any other place where they automatically get a raise. And this is one of the concerns that I think I quoted a paragraph in the letter that I had Peter forward to you all from page 5 of the information that Director Bailey sent us the other day. Personnel costs are the largest single driver impacting operating expenses, along with I was talking about the chemicals and things. So I didn't even address that in my letter to you all, but we all know what that is. You have to, the cost of having workers, of having public employees goes up automatically every year. And that's a huge driver. And I don't know what we can do about it. That's part of why I don't talk about it very often, although I have mentioned it before. I just want to say that if there is anything that we can do to address personnel costs in any way to help lower it, because between that and hopefully getting rid of some chemicals, which are horrible in our water anyway, maybe we can save some money. Maybe we don't have to raise rates. Maybe we could, I'm just all for anything that will help people. I know that's how we all feel. No one wants to raise rates. Everyone wants to lower them. But I just want to bring to your attention again that it said in our own information that we were given, personnel costs are the largest single driver impacting operating expenses. We need to do something about that. We can't just gloss it over and go, yeah, that's just the way it is. Or if we do feel that that's just the way it is, then we certainly shouldn't get upset with a company like Republic because they get away with raising stuff all the time because they just do, because they can. So I don't know, these are concerns. We all share them, but I think it's good to note them. It's good to share them publicly, but I want to find a solution. I want to see what can we do? What can we do that will ultimately bring things down? And if we can't do anything about personnel, let's do what we can with regard to the chemicals. If there's something we can get rid of, cut expense, cut cost, make things healthier. I know anyone who's watching this won't have any idea what I'm referring to, but you all know, because I know that our city manager did share my letter and those links with you. And I do thank you for taking the time to read it and to check the links. They're all very short. And I just want to cut the costs. I just want to do anything we can to not have to raise every last rate. If we could raise 2 out of 3 and not all 3, whatever. So that's it. That's the end of my plea for the evening. Thank you kindly.
Thank you. And for me, I would like to share, first of all, my appreciation for Matt Harrington for supporting and promoting the FO of the Mayor contest that's going on right now. He has been an excellent resource in helping me stay out of trouble with these young folks and also get information from them. He has been a superior support staff working with me. But I will tell you, these 5th graders that I met with at North Albany Elementary School were discussing things with me and with their teachers that surprised me. I had one young lady mention she wants bigger and more parks. Another lady saying, well, if we build more parks, who's going to service them? So if these are young people having real concerns about their city, and I think that this contest is bringing that to the forefront. And I'm excited about the number of kids, young people that are participating and expressing interest in what's going on in their city. The next thing is I want to thank the staff and teachers. One of them, Debbie Blaine, for her inviting us to her classroom to talk with her children. And then gasoline prices. There's another issue associated with gasoline prices. I went to get gas at a local gas station, and the young lady came outside and says, "You have to pump your own gas, sir. We have no one to pump gas." And so we're going to see more and more of that. And that was 2 gas stations this last week that I had that experience. And so costs are going up. We need to figure out a way to reduce that cost when we can, and put our best effort in negotiating and working with our suppliers and vendors going forward. And other than that, I'm done for the evening. I would like the city manager's report, and I'll let you all go.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. First thing I'd like to mention is our low income assistance program. And so Councilor Johnson had talked to this gentleman, and I'm hopeful, Councilor Johnson, that you pointed him perhaps in the direction of the CSC and low income assistance. And I suspect also that if he were to call Julie Jackson at Republic, who makes herself available for questions like this, he might be able to find out some assistance available there. So I do want to give you some good news. We got word today that financial assistance for our composting system has made it out of committee in the Senate. So that's going to have to pass both the House and the Senate, but it's a pretty sizable amount of support that we'll get. And that's certainly really good news. The other good news, which nobody's talked about tonight, is that Friday at midnight, the mask mandate ends. So as you all know, we're going to meet in council chambers for our next council meeting. It's a work session on the 21st. And I would invite you to come a little early if you feel like you need to get back into the swing of things in the chamber. Matt Harrington will be there to help you out with some of the technical aspects. I think Allison will be there as well. So there's good news on Friday night, but there's bad news on Sunday morning when we lose an hour due to daylight savings time.
Yeah.
Just a
I have
bundle of
nothing to
joy
do with
today.
that. And then the last thing to mention to you is that I'll be on travel next week as part of my duties with the Military Officers Association. And Shane Wooten, our fire chief, will be acting city manager for the week.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mayor, thank you. And that's all I have.
Thank you. So Peter, just so you know, the reason we didn't bring up the mask ban thing is not to jinx it, but thanks. I appreciate it. Everyone, thank you. Councilor Johnson, you have something?
I did. Peter, in the email that we got from the LLC today, or yesterday, asking us to write our senators, because apparently the Senate, or anyway, Congress may take some of our COVID relief funds back. I mean, I did today because, you know, the cities are struggling. We need that money. And so I just wanted to bring that up because I think it's important that they know, hey, we need it too.
Councilor, I read that email and I was alarmed by the first couple of paragraphs as well, but I would point you to the last paragraph in which it talks about how that's not going to happen in Oregon because we've already received our money. So what they're asking you to do is make a call in support of other cities around the country. Okay. So again, take a look at that last paragraph and you'll see it's pretty reassuring.
Okay, I will. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Johnson, for bringing that to our attention. I did read it as well. And I thought I'm glad you did that. I think the public needs to know that. So thank you. And if you feel like standing up for other cities, please do. So next meeting, we will be in person. March 21st at 2022 at 4 p.m. for our work session. And then Wednesday, March 23rd at 6 p.m. And I'm hoping that those that can attend will be there and ready to go to work. City Manager?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just to point out, and you kind of alluded to it, that we have invested in a hybrid capability. So if a counselor is sick or can no longer or can't attend for some reason, whether it's COVID related or otherwise, work with Matt and we'll set it up so that you can participate virtually.
Okay. So thank you all for coming. Thanks everyone in attendance. Have a great evening and take care of yourselves and be safe out there.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.